Hello, my internet friends. Nice to see you out there. Welcome to the Rigel Show. We are coming to you live from Austin, Texas, here in my Earth Dome, also known as my mystical driftwood fort on the sandy beach of the cosmic navel, where song runs through all of reality. That's where we're going, folks. We're going into the minor chords today. This space is a playful Theotokian riparian zone that seeks to integrate traditional values, modern values, progressive postmodern values, and that which is emerging on the bleeding edge of the noosphere, postmodern values. Here at the Cosmic Navel, we float toward the horizon of paradox, that blurry line between ocean and sky that keeps calling us forward, yet never quite in our grasp. Maybe you're paddling by on your own piece of driftwood, looking for some playmates. I invite you to come on up to the beach, pull that waterlogged driftwood up into the sunshine, and let it dry out a little. Get some of that buoyancy back. Okay? If you want to join me on screen, you can click the link in the chat and feel free to say hello if you're out there just paddling by, say hello. You click that link and join me on screen by breaking the fourth wall, Quick announcement, exciting announcement before I plunge into the Cosmic Navel. Paul Vanderklay, PVK, also known to some as the godfather of estuary and TLC, Paul is coming to Austin, Texas, later this month. And he's going to come speak at our church. And I thought, well, while he's here, why don't we make the most of it and do some other little events? So we pushed our normal estuary, which happens earlier in the month, back to the week that he's here. So we're going to have a big old estuary. And then after that estuary, we're going to go hang out at a pub. And then the next day, so this is the 28th, sorry. And I'm going to actually drop a link into the chat that has all of this information. So you can just go straight to my Substack post that has all the info. So we're going to go hang out at a pub after the Thursday night estuary. Friday, May 29th, we're going to have a house party over at my house. You can take a tour of the Cosmic Navel, which I believe is priced out probably like market value is about $27. So bam, you get that for free. And then Paul's going to speak at our church on Saturday, and everyone's welcome to kind of hang around and, go to Vespers or go to liturgy with us in the morning. All right. So if you're out there, you want to drive to Texas, fly to Texas, holler at me, and we will, boy, why is my phone going off? This is like the most annoying. Oh my Lord. Okay. I'm just going to have to live with the imperfections of my technological settings. All right. I'm going to jump to it. Cosmic Navel. Here we come. I'm going to play a little music and then just invite folks to come on up. Okay? And drop a comment in the in the chat, for some reason, I'm not seeing anything, and I just want to make sure that things are working. All right, here we go. Oh, let's bring Rigel's fingers on stage as well. Hey, fingers. Take a little coffee break. All right, I'm going to bring up some lyrics here. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. Well, look way down the river, and what do you think I see? I see a band of angels, and they're coming after me. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. Well, look down yonder, Gabriel, put your feet on the land and see. But Gabriel, don't you blow your trumpet till you hear from me. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. Meet me, Jesus, meet me. Meet me in the middle of the air. And if these wings don't fail me, I will meet you anywhere. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. Meet me, mother and father, meet me down the river road. And mama, don't you know that I'll be there when I check my load. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. All right. Robin! Nice to see you.
Hi.
Oh, welcome. Welcome to the Cosmic Navel, where song runs through all of reality.
That was a great song, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. I first heard that from Johnny Cash, I think.
No.
Yeah. So what's bubbling up for you?
Uh, well, I've been sick the last 3 days, and I have two gigs, one today and one tomorrow. And I'm thinking, oh man, honestly, yesterday I had no voice whatsoever.
Oh man.
So it's that feeling you get. You're just kind of like almost pissed at your own self.
Yeah.
You know, it's nobody's fault who how I caught a cold. So but it's so how tricky are these bodies? We don't really get a say sometimes. We just have to go with that flow.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Even when
body's
you think you have something more important than what it's doing.
hmm I was I'm going to make a real leap here, connecting what you're talking about to this metal art project I'm working on right now. So I'm working on a sign which has no purpose other than to remember a conversation that I had with somebody that made us both laugh
Yeah.
and kind of punch the air with our fists. It's the sign is just sip and squat because me and this other person, we both share a addiction to coffee and a love for CrossFit. And we were like,
Sip and squat.
we need to start something. Yeah, like a company. We need to start a coffee shop called Sit and Squat. Sip and Squat.
Sip and squat.
Anyways, so I'm trying to figure out how to mount these letters. Like all of this is just kind of new to me, and I'm just figuring it out as I go. And one option is to like take a prefabricated piece of metal and try to like weld things on there. But I had this long piece of rebar that I found on the side of I-35, and it was kind of just the right length, but it's not perfectly straight. It's got kind of like this sweeping bend, and not only does it kind of bend up and down, but it bends like out and then back in. And I had this thought like, okay, I could try to bend this straight. That's definitely a possibility. But I could also just kind of work with the bend that I found,
Yeah.
you know. And I while I was like having that thought, I was thinking like, there's no like blank slates in life. There's just kind of continuing the thread. And like our bodies know that, Our bodies, like, they don't just get to like start over. It's like
Tell me about it.
like rematch. Wait.
Sometimes you get a little help,
Yeah.
again, from something that is totally out of your control, like a surgeon who knows what they're doing and puts this new ceramic body part inside you, and all of a sudden you feel 20 years younger. But
Yeah.
but
No.
in general, you don't really have that. It's just we decay. We decay.
Yeah.
And decay is I actually wrote a song once about decay. I'm trying to remember what it was. What a good thing is decay.
Ryan's out there. Hey,
Right.
Ryan, good
Ah.
to see you. Okay, so keep saying what you're saying about DK. Sorry, I
Anyway,
interrupted.
just that decay is like it's not something, oh, we don't like it, but it's going to come anyway. It is something that's good.
Mm,
It breaks things away for the new, so feeds the new.
nourishes like
Yeah.
compost, like
Yeah.
manure.
And I
Like
remember when my mom died, and okay, so my mom died and we had her cremated. And then when my dad died later, they had both decided to be cremated. And when my dad died later, he said, I don't want to do that. I realized after mom got cremated, I didn't want to do that. So we put her ashes in his arms and then buried them both together. But before we buried my mom, my sister and I went out in the yard and we put a big old quilt on the yard, and we poured the ashes out, and we just like handled them and tasted them and just smelled them and felt like that was like this was a definite part of our mom, you know. And so that feeling of that was like speeded up decay, you know, basically cremation, but still the whole idea that it's all going to be mixed in together, you know.
Yeah. Why? I'm curious why he didn't want to be cremated.
I think he didn't like having a box of her. I think he would rather, and he didn't want to do anything with it. It's like it just sat in a this cupboard, marble top cupboard thing that he had, which I actually have now. And
oh, interesting.
I think it just like didn't feel right to him. And his, you know, his whole family had all, his mom, his dad, his relatives had all been buried. So I think the burial thing resonated more with him. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Sherry.
Hi. Hi, guys.
Nice to see you.
You too. You too.
We're just talking about graves and decay over here.
Body's tendency to decay.
I liked your phrase, working with the bend I found. I was laughing because the last few weeks here have just been that for me. Working with the bend I found.
Yeah.
You know, God. Just like literally, I was snaking a drain yesterday for the umpteenth time.
Oh my God.
Which I just can't get unblocked. And it's got bends in it. And then the snake does too, because I keep bumping up again and bending the snake. So anyway, it was a very relevant phrase when I heard it. Working with the bend I found. And I'm like, you know, under the sink. I'm like, you know, till your knees are aching and your back is sore and you're scraping your knuckles because you keep hitting them with this thing, you know, and yeah. Anyway. It's all very analogous to life in general, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just back to the burial process. You know, I mean, I find beauty in both. Like my sister Meadow was cremated. I didn't get to see her body, which was feels like kind of an open loop. But I do have her ashes, and that's special to me that I can carry them with me, you know, and remember. But there's also a part of her ashes that are buried in actually two different locations. Wow, this is very personal. And it was partly due to just like an impasse with my parents on like what to do, you know? And so that's the convenience of ashes, is you can split them up. But there is something beautiful about having like a particular point on earth where I could go, and I don't know, it feels somehow fragmented, like she's fragmented, even though like she's not fragmented in my heart, but it's like, where do I go? You know, which place do I choose to go and remember her?
And we're so transient too.
Yeah.
You know, like I've thought about the whole cremation and burial thing. I personally want a real Irish wake. Like my kids are like, "Mom, how do you want to be buried? How do you want your funeral?" And I'm like, "Oh God, really?"
A parade with costumes, please.
I said, "Well, first of all, I want to be in the room, okay? In a box in the middle of the room with ice and whiskey bottles everywhere. And I want you guys to just party for 3 days. Hard."
I
And then
love that.
bury me after that. But my my husband's mom passed away recently, and he's actually there now. He's in Switzerland, and he got a in the mail because they had his dad's ashes in the house, but for some reason, I think they sent them away to be prepackaged or something. I don't know. But he goes, "Look what came in the mail today," and he showed me, on camera, these 2 boxes. One says Hans, one says Alice, and it's just a totally weird thing because he's in their house. He's staying there at his family home, and they're just sitting on a workbench in the entryway. And they're ashes, and everything about them is like, I don't even know how to put it into words. It's just a very,
I think ritual is really important when you're having that not at odds feeling, but like this kind of spiritual confusion of what do I do now? This is not something I'm used
they
to.
have a plan. I mean, they have a ritual. His parents did a lot of mountain climbing when they were young, and they met actually on a spot in the Alps, and so they're going up there to spread their ashes.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I have my dog's ashes right beside my bed. My dog, yeah, and she was a special girl. So yeah, it's a strange thing. And then when I became Orthodox, I found out that there's no cremation allowed in Orthodoxy. And I wondered.
Is there a reason?
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, I didn't ask. I mean, I could assume that it has something to do with the desecration of the body, because in Orthodoxy, holy relics are very important. There's a meaning to the physical body. But hi, Danielle.
Hi, Sharon. Hi, everyone. Robin and Roger. How's everyone? I don't have to leave for work for another about 45 minutes to an hour.
Yay.
Finally on a Friday.
Oh my gosh.
I wanted to jump in and say hi to everyone. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Oh, there. Mandy says her Orthodox professor said it's because of Gnosticism, the view of the body matters. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny if those 2 words together, the body and matter. But I thought it just that prohibition made me ponder it, like just give it credence and just say, okay, well, what is this about? And it seems to be more than what meets the eye. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I see beauty in both ways. But like particularly in this culture of mobility, the spreading of ashes, somewhere like on a mountaintop or out in the ocean or at some like memorable place, it feels like, I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I feel the effects of this like culture of mobility, and I'm kind of having this realization that if our bodies are in a place together with, gravestones and this kind of ritual that locks them into that space in time, it creates like just a little bit of gentle pressure to stay together instead of like disperse. It just feels like our whole culture is like,
we're so dispersed. Yeah.
Just disperse. If it's uncomfortable, disperse. If it's, and speaking of like in my little preamble where I talk about integrating traditional values, I think that actually the act of staying is one of the most radically traditional value, like a tangible traditional value that doesn't just feel like weird fundamentalism. I mean, it can become its own fundamental. I mean, people, they're like, you must not leave. And I don't want that either. I'd rather choose to stay rather than being forced to stay. But there's kind of these structural things that we can do that include like the generations before us and the generations that are after us by, putting our bodies together.
Trees stay.
Hey, I found that song. Can I sing it for you?
Oh, yes. Yes.
I'm not going to play it or anything because I don't remember the chords, but anyway, it's called Ash Reliquary.
Oh, perfect.
Ash reliquary, memories upon my tongue. Now you smell of the sea and holding hands when I was young. I am a child, grown but still a child, who holds the shells of those who loved her so. And now I shake you loose along the wind. All that is left to me, I let you free to catch in river, rock, and tree. One more time, one more conversation, one more why. Death is so complicated, I am trying to let go. I am trying not to know where you go, and however will I find you? Not in a reliquary, not in faded imagery, but in river, rock, and tree. One more time.
Beautiful.
That was stunning.
Oh.
Wow, Robin.
Oh.
Wow.
One more time. That is so.
And
resonant.
Rye, your sister's name was Meadow.
Yeah,
And
I know.
I mean, where else would you go?
Right, exactly.
Go out in the meadow, even if her ashes aren't there, go in the meadow and that be your place,
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Wait, did you write that?
I did.
That's beautiful.
Stunning.
Golly.
Stunning.
It reminded me of a little poem I wrote a long time ago. I am like a leaf falling to the ground, tossed about by wind, until it finds its perfect place and disappears between the rock and the flower.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's a simple one.
Oh,
Almost haiku in its capture, Yeah.
Between the rock and the flower.
Yeah.
Jeez. Sherry. Well, Daniel, what's bubbling up for you today?
Oh,
Well, it's wonderful to see everyone. Goodness, and I love Robin. That was stunning. The lyrics were amazing, and to put those together and to weave them like you did with your vocals is very impressive. And there's quite a depth there. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Sherry, wonderful to see you. And Michelle certainly has enjoyed speaking with you. And
yeah.
Nigel, it's great to see you. Bubbling up for me. Convincing people to do tours at the venue, please. Oh, please. And can you sign here? So that's good. We built 4 standing beds that we're getting compost to fill and going to do strawberries. I planted 7 tomato plants. We'll see if they do something. And keep the deer off of them is always the question. And
the deer, those damn deer.
Yeah, yes.
I know. Gone, a whole bed of raspberries gone.
We did a mother's. It took me a very long time to find a flower that deer wouldn't eat, that if we planted for Mother's Day would be there for Mother's Day, because we did the day before to surprise, and it would be really awkward. It would be like, here's your mother. Oh, they're gone. Sorry. It didn't go so well. But no, I'm very interested in what you were saying about, roots and the place and how the gravestone, there is something about the gravestone that sort of creates an orbit to a family where it kind of feels strange to have your grandfather buried somewhere that no one has anything to do with, right? It almost feels kind of wrong to do that. Or like that almost makes it more palatable. It kind of embodies forgetting them. There's always that idea that you shouldn't forget the past, you shouldn't forget history. And if you don't, and if you're like, oh, the tombstone is 200 miles away, it kind of can create that effect on the flip side there, I think cost is part of it. I think land, with all of those different factors, I think there is also something where people want to maybe be buried on their own property or somewhere that they know, and legality and certifications get in the way of that. So I don't have a hard position between those things. Cremation and grave. It is very interesting with Christians being buried in graveyards, that having this idea of, there's going to be the resurrection of the body. So actually we need to have a set place in the community. And it's interesting to think of the community all coming back together at the same time as a kind of host, heavenly host, resurrected together that the gravestone graveyard affords. So that's interesting. I guess I've also been thinking, Michelle and I had a conversation where we were in the kitchen and we've been talking a lot about philosophize your life, which of course can be overlaid with theologize your life, which I would also put together with make your life creative as well. All of those things for me kind of go together quite strongly. And we were kind of talking about, so are we saying that people ought to do philosophy? Are we saying they ought to do it? Because isn't that kind of forceful and oppressive? But then if you don't believe people ought to do it, then what are you doing? Right? I mean, like, why are you even doing it if you don't think? So what exactly is one doing when they engage in, say, deeper conversations? And something we've just talked about is that I think a lot of these online conversations are kind of actually like, you ought to create the conditions by which you can determine what you ought to do. Like, you ought to create the conditions by which what you ought to do can emerge, not be something you just choose, but that appears and kind of manifests, right? And actually, it takes a whole lot of work to till the ground as such. I know Ross Bird talks about the Christian as tilling the ground. Like, you have to kind of till the ground. And for example, if you're not able to tell the difference between freedom to do something and freedom in something, then the likelihood that you're actually going to be able to discern how you should live your life is less. The expansion of your language is the expansion of your world. When you're actually not able to speak or use words, or if the only way you can use words is, say, technically, but not poetically, you literally live in a smaller world. Like, you're like, the world is smaller. And what are the chances you're going to be able to determine how you ought to live in a smaller world versus a bigger world, versus a world where you have more capacity for? So there's a weird way in which we were just kind of talking about, it's just something that I've been kind of orbiting recently, is kind of the meta ought. Like, you ought to be able to determine what you ought to do, and how that is kind of often what one is doing. Because if I say what you ought to do, I'm saying I know your circumstance, I know what's best for you, and I kind of can be kind of forceful. But if I say, well, you ought to expand language so that you can determine what you should do, that's very different, right? I'm actually kind of saying that you should till the soil of your own life so that there's a better chance that can grow in it what you want to grow in it. So I've been thinking about that kind of thing.
I was in the chat for that this morning. It was great.
It
was a great conversation. I love it. Yeah. I love listening to you and Michelle talk, because it's not just two people, it's a husband and wife, and there's something very intimate about that. So that was really good. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being there, sharing.
When you were speaking, Daniel, I was thinking of how I probably err on the side of poetic communication versus precise communication. And I see, like, I would love to have more confidence in just being able to communicate what's in here and get it out. Just kind of on the fly, like you do and other people. I can do it sometimes, but other times I feel like my limited words are kind of getting in the way.
It comes out of your hands sometimes.
Comes out of my hands, comes out of my welding torch. But so where would you recommend starting, Daniel, in this journey towards a life of philosophy?
Well, I think it's a great question. And first, I should note that I basically think that, to say something large, I think everyone has a kind of language they lean toward. We could say poetic, technical, and the name of the game is actually to, in a certain degree, go through all of them, like learn them all. And because like, so for example, I know some people, I know precise speakers, but because perhaps they do not have the poetic imagination, then the things they speak precisely about are very flat, or they're not actually getting at the full experience, right? I know people who speak very clearly, but the thing that they're speaking clearly about is not hard to see. So if they can speak clearly about something that's not hard to see, okay, cool. Speaking clearly about something hard to see is another matter. And then speaking clearly about something hard to see in a manner that is not reductionistic is also another matter. Philosophy is famous. Well, philosophy, at least in its degradation and its impoverishment for a certain period of time, got very good at speaking clearly about things that were hard to see, but it did so by cutting off quality or dimensionality and reducing it, right? And I would accuse that generally of the analytical tradition, which, you know, it depends on what we mean. There can be some very good analytical philosophy, Kripsky or et cetera, I would associate with that. So we have to learn to kind of do it all in a certain degree. And I think actually, as a large claim, I think this basically requires lifelong learning. Like, but we haven't, we haven't had the infrastructure to do lifelong learning until like, I don't know, 5 years ago. This Zoom, YouTube, social coordination mechanism, I like to call it. This is kind of needed to learn the full gambit of conversations, because you can watch different people, see different people, model it, do it between laundry. You have to work really hard for 2 weeks, but then jump back on. Like, we haven't really had the technology to realistically do lifelong learning. And with this, I think, and notably in community, and notably with the way I think people learn best, which is not via lecture, but overhearing conversation. I think actually we learn best how to engage in conversation by overhearing it, having it modeled, and then spaces where we can jump in. That's how I think you learn the full gambit of all conversational types. And that has not really been available. So I think the first way basically to learn it is to jump into spaces where you're doing it. And I think doing the Rigel Friday stream is definitely part of that. I think I also must say my beloved, my dear friend Thomas Jockin just released a Substack on dignity. And I really do believe it gives the best sort of framework by which to think of classical thought. He calls himself a scholar of the relationship between Plato and Aristotle, not one or the other. And I think he does a lot of work there over the years. We've talked about beauty, dignity, memory, and all of these things. I think the framework that he offers on his Substack is like unbelievable to really kind of think about what is philosophy trying to do. That is not just, that actually is developing personhood. I think that's, as a framework, very good. But I honestly think what I would say to your question of gaining those capacities of articulation, I think a big part of it is surrounding yourself with friends who give you permission to engage in conversations where you don't know what you're trying to say. Like it is like to throw yourself in conversation spaces where we let what we're going to say surprise us and emerge, and we're actually okay with groping in the dark, like trying to bring something into our articulation that we haven't before. In the same, let me put it this way, and then I'll stop. Basically, you don't get stronger, generally speaking, unless you go to the gym and try to do something like that pushes you, right? Like that's kind of more difficult. You gain in speech capacity. We have a culture that basically makes you feel as if when you speak, you should know the topic, you should know your points. It should be an exchange, just a pure exchange of information. You don't learn how to speak in that culture. You may exchange words, but you don't learn how to speak. When you get into spaces where you use language more as an orbiting, not just an exchange of information, but more of a chora, a space, and then you maintain faithful presence to that, and you continue to give yourself over to that, and you believe in that, then that's like going to the gym to train that capacity. And I would also, that is actually, for me, the correct spirit of learning philosophy versus going and reading the history of philosophy. The history of philosophy could just be information you memorize. But if you get the spirit of philosophy, which I think is found in that experience of language and that experience of a space with other people, then I think that develops the spirit that then just one works out in the same way that they practice poetry on a piece of paper by reading books and engaging in the great conversation and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. So that's the way I think about it.
Yeah, I love what you said about surrounding yourself with people who make room for you to grope in the dark.
Absolutely.
Because that feels very. I can do that. I can start on that path.
And you're groping with them. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
that sounds weird, but it's like all of a sudden, like, wow, I never even imagined that. And
Yeah.
someone will say something and that goes in, then that one goes into you and you get to like mull that one around for a while, whatever that new one was, you know? And it's like, it works if you can connect.
That's exactly why I came into the corner and stayed in the corner.
Yeah.
Dr. Destructos at work there. Yeah, because being the solitary kind of person that I am, I wrote a lot of poetry to process that was my critical thinking skill, was poetry. And you know, it has its value. It's great. Helps you to see the world from a different point of view, but you can't really share that with somebody else. You know, you can share your poetry, but it doesn't mean you've made yourself known to them, because poetry has this beautiful quality of being able to map onto everyone else's lives, right? So it's like Goethe says, you know, the particular is always an analogy of the general, right?
Yes.
So if you talk about you, everyone's going to understand that in some, you know, in poetry. Not if you're just being narcissistic, you know. But if you're laying yourself bare in a poem, that is going to resonate with anyone who reads it.
Yeah.
But to have an exchange with somebody of ideas, right? And maybe even, you know, maybe you want to kill some of those ideas, but you haven't found a way. You need someone to kill it for you. You know that it needs to die? Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But you haven't really been able to find a way
Hey,
around.
hold on. Someone's mic is like kind of rattling, and it's actually cutting Sherry off.
It's
Yeah, why
probably
don't you just mute it while she's talking, and then you're good.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, you just don't have that ability to get around your own idea, you know, from all the angles.
Uh-huh.
So you need somebody else to come in and say, no, I think that has to die, because, or maybe you could, let's expand it. There's that option too, right? Let's expand on it. That's always a great moment when you have an idea and it's just this big and someone goes, and your mind gets blown, you know, it's fantastic. So that's why I came into the corner. I came into the corner because here's the deal. I had this voice that said to me, you need to learn how to say what you're thinking about. And I knew I couldn't do that because I had spent most of my life saying things to people and they looked at me like I was some kind of a ghost. Like they just didn't, you know, that's how they looked at me.
I think this is very common to women as well. Honestly, I think this is very. I mean, I think it's like there's this idea. This for a lot of women, there's this idea of expansive caretaking, and therefore, if you are always considering everything around you, then your own. It's not like you necessarily get stifled, but you don't bring it forth as clearly, I think, or as often. And I think this is not an uncommon experience to feel that way, where you say something and then everybody around you appears to be nonplussed because you just came out with something that you're not used to putting forth, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, first off, I think as the world gets more and more complex, as you're losing, given all the sociological, technological stuff, is that the more and more you are having experiences that you that happen that you don't understand or you can't bring into language. And what like C.S. Peirce will kind of talk about is how, when you have that kind of experience, it's like an itch on your brain that you're trying to scratch. And I think a lot of anxiety that people talk about are actually as a result of a lack of processing. Like generally they're not able to process things. And there's something about language that is supposed to be in the business of processing, but actually we often use language just to reduce, right? And actually we say the stuff that needs to be processed, meaning, oh, if you have something you haven't processed, you have a mental illness, you have something wrong with you. That's your problem, right? So it's kind of like we create a kind of Foucaultian norm and then other people who need processing. But really actually the most, in my opinion, the most realist things require processing because they're gestalts. They are holes that you cannot exhaust. Well, if reality is something that cannot be exhausted, which I would argue it is, then unless you're thinking about that which you're processing, not knowing ahead of time and just sharing the information, then in a way you're not dealing with reality. You're dealing with a reduction of it.
But Daniel, can I ask you a question?
Please.
Because there's something here, and I think it maps on really well to Rigel and what Rigel and Robin contributed this morning, which was music and song. Everyone has their own voice. So there was a moment in the chat this morning, I don't know if you noticed it on your channel, where you guys were talking about something in particular. I don't remember what it was, but like 4 people were, all these like comments came bombing in, and they were all different comments, but we were all saying the same thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So everyone has their own voice, right? And as we do, as humanity does, we like to find a norm or I think this is what scholasticism did actually, is it kind of just said, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to talk about things like this. And everything got put into little categories, So even though the comments are all the same, I could say, well, he's a romantic and he's a scholastic and he's right.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah.
Right. And, or he's a musician, and all of those labels can actually reduce you down to something that is on a hierarchy of value. What's the most important, the theologian or the poet, the scholastic or the musician? I mean, in the medieval times, it was the bard who moved around and brought new ideas and new life through story and song, right? Anyway, this is just something that really, because one of the things I had to learn on this journey of being able to articulate myself was that I had to find my own voice. I couldn't use somebody else's way of saying these things because, first of all, they didn't mean anything to me. Right. And yeah. And it'll just be you that says the thing, right? Like if you're like, I feel like I'm more poetic by nature. So when I say things, they don't always land because it's all mixed up. I'm articulating something maybe from a more technical realm, but in a more poetic language, something like that. I don't know.
You're just merely floating along the horizon between the ocean and the sky, that liminal space, and not everyone's kind of floating there with you, I am.
You know how it feels. You know how it feels, and you know how it wants to come out.
Right.
That's that gift. And
well, that's the thing about
everybody had a gift like that.
Yeah.
How wonderful to sit and look at each other and go, whoa, I
know it. And that's why it's so beautiful to be in a room full of people and hear them saying things because they are literally poetry themselves.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely
what it feels like to me.
That is so well said, Sherry. I mean, that's why I think I just love hosting these. I get to create space for other people to share their stories. And I think that's what's so magical about the estuaries, that we're now doing in person here in Austin. But
yeah. So Daniel, I just wondered how do you think about that, about having your own voice? Because I know you wouldn't reduce it. I know that. I know that's not what you would do.
I think it's a magnificent point you're making. I think you find your voice in voices. You find your voice in the history of voices. Like people who want to be writers, it's really important to read a lot, precisely so that you almost like that Borges story on Shakespeare in reference to Schenck and all the work they're doing on Hamlet, is that you need, but this is why you also need friends. Like philosophy requires friendship, because like your voice comes from a community of voices, and here's and your voice is something that emerges or apprehended versus intentionally created. You intentionally create the conditions where your voice can emerge by putting yourself in community or putting yourself under the saints or putting yourself under beauty. And then you find your voice almost as something you experience via grace. But that requires doing now it's not completely passive though, because you have to actively put yourself in the place to encounter difference and other voices and try to really understand what in the world is Shakespeare saying. I don't, one of the things I would always do is just take passages out of, if I was doing a story that was say Southern Goth or whatever, I would just copy verbatim passages out of Faulkner or O. Henry to try to get them in me. And then throw away all the passages and then try to write after putting it in you. And likewise, if you're doing a modernist tech, you might do Don DeLeo or something like that, right?
It's like eating.
Yeah, it's like eating. It's absolutely like eating.
What you love and then creating afterwards.
Totally, Robin.
Yeah, love it.
That's 100% the case. And I think a similar thing happens when you have conversations like this, and then afterwards you're kind of buzzing, right? So you ate, and then your voice comes out. It kind of comes alive. Like your voice comes alive when you eat like you're supposed to. And I think also for me, like you're saying about the problem of hierarchy, for me, a lot of hierarchical thinking in history, if I'm being charitable, has been tied to coordination problems, meaning we have limited time, limited resources. I can't go to both poetry school and the scholastic school. So which am I going to go to? Okay, I'm going to rate this one as better than the other. But all of this also followed from a lack of a social coordination mechanism. I think basically speech that emerges in the between spaces of a bunch of voices coming together in community, that's the best speech, actually, because it is not reducible. It arises, but it's been very, very difficult in history for us to actually create those kinds of spaces because of logistical limitations. Maybe if you stayed at college your entire life, but how many people could get the professorships? And then by their own incentives would cut down the poetic kind of input that would be available. I think there is more. What gives me great hope is I think there's more opportunity today to realize, I want to say, the fullness of personhood because of these new coordination technologies we have than we've seen in the past. And we really need to capitalize upon that. The thing I also just wanted to say quickly on what you're saying about the way you speak, Sherry, or poetry, or the feminine, sort of like the whole. Generally speaking, this is a vast generality. There's kind of two ways to reach an idea, maybe a conclusion, et cetera, so forth. There is the 2 + 2 = what? 4. That's calculation. Okay, so that's kind of a calculation that you do. This has dominated society, calculative thinking, especially after modernity. But there's actually another way you reach a conclusion that is more aligned with Gestalt thinking of the great James Wiggy. So, and I think often the poet, or maybe the feminine, which I know is a generality, the great Sam Green, who wrote a tremendous short story, The Mermaid. We've talked about this. You know those small little pictures, like an optical illusion, where you gather up a bunch of pictures and you see the big picture, right? You kind of apprehend it. That's called an apprehension. You don't calculate it. You move your posture. You move where you stand in the room, and then you see it. Or maybe that famous Dali painting, Old Couple and Musicians, where you have the old couple looking at one another and you say, oh, actually, there's some musicians playing, right? Or let's take the Duck Bunny from Wittgenstein. You look at it the right way and you see that it's both a duck and a bunny, right? So what's very interesting about this is you can't calculate. You can't conclude seeing the thing. You have to move around. You have to gather pictures, and then bam, there it is. You see it. You apprehend it, right? This kind of conclusion is just as valid as calculation. And apprehension is actually more at the Gestalt. It's actually more at fullness, because the thing you realize is not something you thought up with your ego, but something you had to use your full body. You're seeing, you're like, and it's more of a
Position.
posturing, a
Yeah,
moving.
positioning, perspective.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I think very often the poet is speaking in a way that is more trying to get you to apprehend something, or these philosophical discussions are gathering a bunch of things together, and then you go, oh. Like in these conversations, you don't always calculate or know what you're going to say, and yet you know what you're going to say when you're going to speak. How does that work?
You're making a picture with poetry or song.
You're making that's right. These conversations are more like a work of art than an exchange of commodity or information, which is what most conversations have been before the social coordination mechanism, or in very limited spaces like where Hume and Adam Smith are hanging out in Scotland or whatever.
You know what?
This changes how we arrive. We can apprehend more.
Right. Yesterday, I was working on my landscaping, like gardening and stuff, but it wasn't vegetable gardening. I was just flowers and, cutting back stuff and getting ready for everything to go boom, as it does. And I was thinking, I'm gardening with Wittgenstein. I don't know very much about Wittgenstein. And okay, so I was playing this I was, doing this gardening, and I was writing a thing in my head, I do that a lot. And there's a beautiful book by a woman named, she wrote the book Trees, Eleanor Fargian. And it's called Trees. Okay. And she starts the book out, I know nothing about trees. And then she writes this amazing book. If you can get your hands on it, you got to read it, about trees. But it's not a propositional look at trees. Okay. And so I wanted to, I'm like gardening with Wittgenstein. And then my first line is, I know nothing about Wittgenstein. But what I know is that he stopped doing what he was doing, which was like trying to figure something out, and he gardened. Okay. And I was in a class with Michael Martin, and I actually said, now I know why Wittgenstein gardened, because that's the answer to participate in life and in reality. Because if you try to lay it out like pages in a book, flatten it out, it doesn't, it doesn't matter. Like literally, that's the poetic thing. It has no substance, right? So, he's looking at language and he's going, and I totally concur with Wittgenstein's judgment on language, okay? Because I have a love-hate relationship with, like, whenever I talk about this, people are like, what? Why are you saying, you express yourself well, or you write poetry, or, and it's true. I'm constantly in a dance with language, but I hate it and I love it. Because it feels like I never can say what I want to say unless I'm gardening. I'm on the ground,
gardening,
right? And I'm moving stones, and I'm seeing ants, and I'm cutting away old growth, and the story that I'm in becomes a reality. And that's the only way I can say it.
And you connect. I have a poet friend who wrote a poem, and I couldn't tell you the lines of the poem, but the idea of the poem is, as she's reaching down in the dirt in her garden, there's a woman on the other side of the world reaching down into her garden, and they are connecting through their reach toward each other, through the dirt and through the knowledge that this is how they feed their families. And one might be the woman who she was reaching toward was a woman whose country is at war, and that woman is still gardening. That woman is still reaching down into the dirt.
Sorry, I don't mean to dominate this, but I have to say this. Like, so there's a scene in Malick's Hidden Life movie where Franz Jägerstätter is in prison, okay? And he's decided he's going to die because he's not signing on the dotted line that he's a Nazi and that he's, you know, all this stuff, right? So he knows he's going to die, and when that final decision in his head is made, he's out in the courtyard of the prison for fresh air, and he's staring at the clouds, and he's transported. Okay, he's no longer there. He's in the heavens. And then the scene flips to his wife, and she's at the farm, and she's on the ground, and she knows he's going to do this thing, and she's going to lose him. It's really hard to talk about. And she starts tearing at the grass and digging in the earth because she is attached to it. But she is also the feminine, okay, which is the earth. The earth is feminine, okay? So like the symbolism in this scene is just, I just immediately started to weep when I saw what he was doing. Because George MacDonald has a line in his poem called A Hidden Life, where the main character is standing on the ground. He says his feet stood on the earth and he looked to the heavens. Okay. And the wife is literally on her belly, weeping and ripping clods of sod out of the dirt. And that's the tension of the reality that we live in, right? I don't know why I'm saying this, but it just came to my mind when you were talking about that, Robin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ian. Hey, buddy.
Hey,
Hi, Ian.
everybody.
Nice to
Good to
see
be
you.
back.
What's on your plate that you want to nibble on with us here?
So much of what you guys have been saying has been really good. I've been thinking a lot about the talking and not knowing what you're saying stuff, and like having a group of people that allow the space for that to be held, by these other people, or even drawn out. I think of education as a process of drawing out that which is within a person, and I think that we, like, I'm constantly seeking education, but often I find some sort of I don't know, like expectation maybe, and there's a place for both, but I typically, maybe narcissistically or selfishly, I want that which is unknown within me to be drawn out. And so I, like Sherry, have found the TLC to be like a decent opportunity for that to take place. So that's like a thing that I'm grateful for. But then more recently, what Sherry was just saying about Wittgenstein and the gardening, and having to act out the story that you're within in order to participate in it, is making me think about the way that Jordan Peterson, I just did a video about the Genesis lectures, and he has a diagram in there that shows the development of knowledge moving from actions to the dream, which is sort of like art, and it's a mixture of the known and the unknown, sort of coming together and having a relationship. And then the spoken is the third layer of that, which is something that you know. And I think it's really interesting because the spoken, whether you can speak it or not, has a role in influencing your actions. And that just sent me on my own little personal history trip back to when I moved to Chicago, which is like 11 hours drive away from my family. And I was 18 or 19, and I didn't have a lot of speech at my fingertips, at my disposal. I was not articulate, but I had a bit of a dream of whatever, performing, doing comedy, and living my life. And so I acted that out, and eventually it crashed and burned because the speech was not good, or it wasn't wise. It wasn't corresponding to reality in a life-giving way. And so then it made me think right now today, as I was thinking this history thing, I was like, that is responsible for so much of the good things that I have in my life today. Like I needed to live and I needed to act my unspoken idea that I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't right. And so I needed to act in order to move through those phases of understanding to get to a point where I was like, hey, you know what? I understand that this is unwise, even though people had told me and all this, but I had to go through that myself. And I was just struck by the idea that like, there's a desire to live a sinless life that can lead to a lifeless life, like a life that is inert. And I think that there's that desire for sinlessness is mistaken. It's like the parable of the talents. It's the one that says, oh, I know that you're a very hard master, and so I didn't do anything. And rather than that, I think you got to try your luck and play the market.
Yeah. Instead of trying to not do something, do the things that are the wonderful things. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
wow,
in my particular case, and I'm sorry, just to add that, it's like I thought it was a good thing to do, so I went out and tried to do it. It was in fact not healthy and not maybe good, and there was a lot of destruction that was wrought by this. And then out of that, things like change in me and understandings of things and growth and different relationships and encounters and even like wounds and injuries, and all of this stuff happens and churns and mixes and provides the ferment for myself to grow out of that and my life to take place. And so to not do something for fear that it would be wrong is like nipping it in the bud. There is no potential for growth or life.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to grope for a second because I'm going to try to connect some things. I mean, you talking about this experience of crashing and burning being like the doorway to what came next made me think of what Daniel was talking about in the beginning. These I don't know, you had like 4 or 5 different combinations of speech where, you're either very clear about something that's simple or not interesting, or, very overly reductionist about something that's very complex. And, it made me think that like poetry's highest and best use is when you are standing on the earth looking towards the heavens. And there are moments where that actually happens and you say the perfectly poetic thing that captures that thing that's outside of the boundaries of words, but somehow when you smash the words together in ways that break each other a little bit, it pulls the listener out into that liminal space between ocean and sky.
Yeah.
But the thing is like maybe all those other combinations of like mini crashing and burning or just failing on some small level is actually like we actually have to go through those stages.
It's wheat and chaff is what it is.
Yeah.
It's all that cannot be shaken shall remain. I love that, right?
Yeah. And if you don't try, then it's like you're just stuck in the chrysalis the whole time.
Yeah.
Michelle and I
Your
talked
own
a little bit
making.
about we talked a little bit about imitation and conforming in our conversation that we had on Daniel and Michelle's OG Rose. So if I wants to find it, because she was like, "What? Do they have a channel?" So, but when you're a kid, and St. Paul talks about this. When I was a child, I looked like a child, I acted like a child, I spoke like a child, right? And there's a certain time where you need to imitate, because that's, I think what you're doing is you're bringing stuff into your body. That's what you're doing when you're imitating. You're bringing it inside, right? And when it gets in there, you go, it's like, oh, it's new clothes, right? And now I'm my mother, and now I'm a dog, and now I'm a bird, and you're trying on all the things around you, and what that does is it actually gives you a perspective, a position, right, where you can look at the world as a mother, you can look at the world as a bird or a dinosaur, right? Suddenly, so this is what First Nations cultures do, Indigenous cultures do all over the world. They have a lot of dance and ritual where they become the animal. The Aboriginal people in Australia are amazing at this, by the way. They'll be an emu, right? And they literally become the emu, and they're picking the food that the emu picks at the rate that it picks it, and where does it. But what it's teaching them is where to find emus. Because when you're an emu, then you do what the emu needs to do. And then you step out of the emu and you go, oh, I know where there will be emus. They'll be at where these plants are. They'll be where this, because this is what emus want. I know now because I was an emu. Okay?
Awesome.
That's it. That's what it is. And so that's what children do. They imitate. But then you have to step out of that imitation, because what happens is you bump up against it, and it's called imposter syndrome. Right? Then you're like, oh God, I'm not me. I'm just being like so-and-so or so-and-so, right? And then you have to graduate into your own voice. That's what it is. Suddenly now you have to be your own voice. And you haven't used that up till now. You've only ever imitated, And so, and then this is where the conforming thing is, so you reach towards that because you know that you don't want to be an imposter, right? And imitation is, you don't have the imagination for that anymore, actually. It's gone, because that's a really key component to imitating, right? And then you reach for who you really are, your voice, and you conform to that image. Because conforming happens when you reach for something. Okay? I reach, I conform. That's how reaching and conforming work. I reach, I become a cup. My hand is now a cup, right? I conform to the image. Sorry, I get really excited about this because I just love it. It's so amazing to me. And neither one of those things is bad or wrong or anything. There's nothing. It's not about that. Daniel, you're muted.
No, that was all magnificent. What Ian was saying is very, very important, and what you the absence of sin basically rots unless it makes way for sainthood. And I think, like, if it doesn't make way for courage, like if you have the absence of sin, but that's not an opening to step into courage, then it actually turns into idolatry. And so the problem is, I think many, notably Protestants perhaps, there's been an assumption that the absence of sin equals sainthood. No. I think, without getting too without overextending the analogy, there is a bit of a kind of I want to say immunity kind of metaphor that's taken over. It's like we need to avoid places of sin because we'll capture it and get sick, right? So you avoid it. And if we step into these clubs or art, you'll get infected by the ways of the world and you'll walk away from Christian. There's a kind of infection kind of logic to it, right? We don't believe in natural immunity, which is sainthood. We don't believe that actually, if you can go out and actually in faith and do these conversations and build your capacity to actually be in the world and not experience it in a way that actually leads you towards sin. In fact, you gain your capacity to lead you toward beauty. And then the things of sin is to be too easily pleased, as Lewis kind of put it, right? And so there's this idea that, and then of course, the problem is if you don't believe in building natural immunity, ergo sainthood and so on, which is actually then to build the capacity to be attracted toward the beautiful, which then when you reach for, you become more like it and you get a positive feedback loop, just like you were saying, Sherry, so well. Well, then if you don't believe that, then your quote unquote immune system, your spiritual immune system is fragile. So when you go out, you do get sick and caught by sin, which seems to prove that you were correct. I knew it. I knew that we shouldn't have gone into those scary places or messed with all of those ideas, because as soon as I did, I got sick. No, that's a lack of exposure. That's a lack of going into it in the right posture, or maybe in humility or in friendship and so on and so forth. So then the problem is you create a self-relating enclosure. And then, everyone feels like they're right and they're locked from the inside, as that idea goes. I think also you were mentioning, Matt, so there's a few more things, and I am very sad to say I do have work obligations. There's something also on this idea of the emu taking different perspectives. Rationality is locked in whatever perspectives you can take. Like your rationality is determined, almost like taking away freedom to go to X location if you can only think one way. Rationality without empathy is determinism, because it can only go one way. But if you gain the ability to see the world as a poet, if you gain the world to see it as a scientist, as an emu, as etc., empathy expands the directionality of rationality. And if you don't have an expansive way of seeing the world, then you cannot be free. And the likelihood that you have the right kind of rationality for whatever situation you end up in is low. If all you have is one view, if all you have is one set of rationality, you're probably going to end up in trouble. So then, we don't want to go into the world. We don't want to go into the clubs. We don't want to go in philosophy because we haven't done the empathetic work to develop the flexibility of viewpoints by which we can have different modes of rationality by which to experience those things in a way that will actually direct us toward sainthood. So this is where communities of learning and running into different languages and different things actually is completely necessary. And then the other part of that, I guess I'm thinking about what you said with the legendary Terrence Malick. Terrence Malick, in my opinion, Malick films are spaces of apprehension. He's creating a space where you can apprehend something. But here's the problem with apprehension. Your ability to apprehend is contingent upon what conditions and what you have inside of you. Like if you haven't been reading or having conversation, you're not filling yourself with the right nutrition, then you can't apprehend. Like apprehension is very tied to what is inside of you. You can calculation works regardless because it's mechanical. Like you don't have to have been reading McDonald, reading literature, or having conversations to be able to reach a calculation. Because it's quote unquote objective, it's impersonal, and that's its power and its danger. But apprehension requires you to have conditioned yourself to be capable to apprehend what's going on, right? And if you haven't been doing that work, then when you watch A Hidden Life, you say, this is stupid. I don't know what's going on. And relative to you, you're right, because you don't apprehend anything, and thus you're locked from the inside. The real tragedy of lacking a life of learning, which I think is also necessary to learn to love, because if you don't love learning, then you're not going to enjoy the process of developing change and loving how things change and seeing how the worlds unfold. So the love of learning is necessary to learn to love in this capacity. If like the real tragedy of the lack of that is therefore you never meet the conditions to apprehend, and therefore you never missed anything. Like the life that is poorly lived, one that experienced itself is getting all there ever was out of it, right? So you're a really good movie critic to think that Terrence Malick is dumb and there's nothing going on there. And you go about your way living your entire life so sure of your judgment because your judgment was bracketed by your failure to condition yourself to apprehend what was going on in that movie. And anyone who says differently, well, they're just stupid. They don't actually know the truth. And that is the tragedy of the life not well lived, if you will, is that it experiences itself as well lived and doesn't even meet the condition to apprehend differently. And what ends up happening also too is when you go, like poetry also, to say a giant game theory thing, which poetry is what is the non-rationality necessary for rationality not to be in a nasty equilibrium or an equilibrium or a suboptimal result, because it's that glimmer, that strike that makes you go, oh, it could be different. Well, if it could be different, then whatever conclusion your rationality reached is tentative. This is the key. Rationality does not reach its fullness unless it experiences its own conclusions as tentative, as maybes. And that maybe sounds overwhelming, but actually it's freedom and it's beautiful because that maybe means there's work to do. There's personhood to develop, right? So the strike of the poet, the strike of the empathy, the strike of the emu, the strike of the other perspective makes you realize that whatever conclusions you reach are tentative. And therefore you have to relate to them not as a computer, but as a person. And they can't, and here's the key, now you're free because those conclusions are not deterministic. They are conditioned. And so you can free yourself from them. And in freeing yourself from them now, I'm not scared. And if you don't do that freedom, you're not going to be able to do these open-ended orbiting conversations because you're going to be stuck on a track. Like when you talk to many people, you experience them stuck on a road. They're stuck on a track. They can't get off of it because their rationality only has one set, only one point of view to follow. And if you say something outside of that point of view, it literally doesn't make sense to them. Like they couldn't make it make sense if they wanted it to. That's the horror. Like if you don't meet the conditions to apprehend the Malick film, you can't apprehend it. You literally cannot. Like you can want all day. You maybe go live and come back 20 years later. Like great works of art, you have to go live an extra 20 years and come back. Then you'll get it, right? Well, what the heck? No, I'm not going to go do that for 20 years. It's either good or not. No, it's good if you live a life for 20 years. We have no categories of works being good if you live a life for 20 years. And yet the best things in life are things that are only the best things in life if you live for 20 years. That's because you meet the conditions to then apprehend them. And the key is now, I think basically there is a certain work of gathering people together who, for whatever X reason, through the social coordination mechanism, have met the conditions of apprehension so that these kind of conversations and ways of life can be modeled so that people can see them and thus believe there's something to them and then be more likely to make the choice to conform to them and thus become like them. And
reach
there's that reach for it because you see it modeled, and that's called culture making instead of culture wars. And I think that's what we're doing now.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's an element of eros in here that's kind of missing, because to reach for something is to desire it, right?
Yes.
But if, like you know, it's so well described, you know, the one track, you know, thing that's happening, when the desire for that runs out, you're living a meaningless life, right? Like you really, you have to have an expansive universe. Like I want to garden with Wittgenstein. Okay. Like in his shoes. I want to put myself there. I want to be in his poetry, right? I want to think like he did. I have to be empathic enough to be able to imagine what is Wittgenstein thinking about when he's gardening, because that's how he ended his life.
And when you reach for that, you reach for that and you recognize it. There's like a recognition in your own
right.
self.
I meet him, Robin.
You know how that feels, even if you haven't felt it, you know how it's supposed to feel.
Yeah.
You know, if it feels kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for coming, Daniel. So I love it when you get excited. I was like wanting to just yell amen
I'm hoping
5 times.
Put that so we can.
Well, I want to say, Grim, it is good to meet you. So I am so sad I have to go to work. So glad to meet. I've not had a chance to speak to you. It's good to see you today, sir.
Yes, I look forward to our official meeting. It's good for us to have this passing.
Yes.
As Rigel Winstone Thurston has cultivated such an environment of community with his powers of apprehension.
Aw.
And my power of apprehension said that this title says Austin Estuary, May 28th, and I thought it'd be fair to warn you all that I would be coming to that.
No! Yes!
It is but a mere 5-hour drive or so from it. I don't know where I'll be
Oh,
sleeping
nice.
yet. It's very exciting, but
Very exciting.
I'm fully capable of sleeping in my car if I have to, but I will be there, and I
Amazing.
look forward to seeing you all. I thought it necessary to give you fair warning.
Thank you. And that brings me great joy. Great joy. Oh my
Delightful.
gosh.
Well,
I feel
well,
like
delightful.
if you come here, Grim, even more people are going to come out of the woodwork.
Well, I certainly hope so. I'm very excited to see the people I already know to be attending, and
Oh, well, wonderful. Thank
so
you for
there's fair
announcing
warning.
Yeah.
I just
Yep.
dropped by for that. I'm gonna get back outside this fourth wall and see what the rest
that. Good.
I
Good.
He just
Perfect
did
timing.
on his channel this morning. I had to leave there to come here, but he did a bunch of auditions for a Shakespearean play that they're putting together, and some of them are live, some of them are recorded. If you want to do something fun after, go
Oh,
to
really?
Grim's channel and watch. I saw some amazing auditions, actually. I was just like,
No way.
whoa. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Amazing. Well, everyone, please, Graham, it was wonderful to see you. I really appreciate everything you were saying on Wittgenstein is an extremely big deal. And yes, he is so big when he's like, Augustine is like, I learned what these words meant. Wittgenstein with Kripke, in my opinion, is actually provides us the resources of the revelation that language is not what we think it is.
Yep.
That it actually is always already more apprehensive than it is definition. And we have, in a sense, the work now is to recover what language always was, that we forgot, so that we can actually experience it. Because what we are as people and persons is strongly tied to how we use language.
Yeah.
And if we only use language in a kind of fungible information sense, then don't be surprised if human beings are practically just heads on sticks, because that follows from the language use. And I also think, Michelle and I were talking about it, is that the way we use language impacts our ability to experience time. Like if so much of Sabbath is tied, and Skole, as Dr. Nieberhauser talks about, is actually a dwelling in time, language is how you condition yourself to experience time differently. If you never use language in this orbiting sense or poetically, then you cannot be the kind of subject that dwells in time in the Sabbath sense. Because why is it you can have conversations like this that go on for like 5 hours and not even notice? Because it's eternity. Language use, reading, poetry, music, and I think language is more like music than it is letters, is that it actually is a dwelling space. But we mostly use language in service of exchanging information. And as a result, we've conditioned ourselves to only experience time sequentially. And therefore, people experience time as a misery. Just, I think, what Sherry was pointing at, because time is this thing that I'm trying to get through to get to something I want. And then I get to the end and I'm retired and there's nothing to do. Like if you don't learn to garden like Wittgenstein, then you literally can't dwell in time in the way that actually makes time your friend, not your enemy. Because most people experience time as an enemy that they want to overcome and kill, just killing time. And is that like the death of God has no better, like that's an articulation of that.
There you go. Yeah. And there's no communion with the saints.
Exactly.
What is that? It's gardening with Wittgenstein. Okay.
Well, and again, he just said Augustine is like, and again, I have great respect for Augustine, but when Augustine's like, my teacher pointed at, this cat and told me that was the word cat, and that's how I learned language. And Matthew Stanley is extremely good on this, and Joel Carini and others, is that that's not how you learn language. You just found yourself, when you heard the word donkey, it's more like you remember seeing a donkey. You don't remember a definition. You remember an experience. Language comes from experience more than it comes from definitions, of which you then analytically relate to other things.
It's like that's what etymology is so beautiful about, right? When you look at the etymology of words, right, you find out that the it's not just a definition. Like there's no definition without the root, the etymology of the word, and the etymology of the like there's a Chilcotin word for horse. I can't remember what it is, but if you were to translate it into English, it means big dog. We all laugh at that, okay? But it's because they never saw a horse before. They
Right.
knew dogs, right? So today, that word means horse. They've forgotten the root. But the root tells the story of a culture of people that had no horses, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's a big story, way down there. It's a huge story.
Yes.
I wanted to jump in and say, sorry, Daniel. I was looking into the word articulation the other day. It really just means like the joining together of things for a purpose or for a function. And so that, like, one of the root words that comprises articulation is artis, and that's the joining together. And it's like, it feels to me like in some sense, when we are able to articulate thoughts or ideas, we are joined together with the reality of which we are speaking, or that we are able to articulate. It's the joining of our own experience and the thing. So relational language is automatically relational in that sense.
Yeah.
I could not agree more. What I would just say, Lap, because alas, I think I can get there on time, is that that's why it feels like such a violence when somebody, like when you say, it's like, let me check on the phone, let me Google that, like, right? It's like, because it's interrupting they're treating the language as primarily about the correctness of the information versus the establishment of connection, right? Or when they kind of get in the way, that doesn't mean that. Like, you can hear people treating language as trivia, to make that like, it's just trivia. That's most people's conversation is a trivia game. Just random questions. Do you know the random answers? And it feels like violence because trivia is about correctness, not about relationship. And I think to what you were saying too, Sherry, what this all shows is that words are more like spaces we enter into and invitations than definitions. When I talk about donkey, I'm inviting you into the space where you kind of experience again your experience with donkey. I'm inviting you to come with me where we share a kind of space within a space about a donkey or a garden. When you talk about the garden, you're inviting me, come with me to my garden. Like, that's what you're doing. When you say I'm out there gardening like Wittgenstein, you're saying, come with me to garden like Wittgenstein. I'm imagining myself doing it, right? And here's the key. Can I open a dictionary and find Wittgenstein gardening and an exact definition of what that means? And that's what I think when you said that. No, I apprehend what you're getting at. I apprehend the invitation. And that is when language is at its fullness. And then if human subjectivity is strongly connected by how we, is strongly conditioned by how we use language, as the psychoanalytics and all of that talk about, that using language in this way is at the very heart of the possibility of realizing the fullness of our personhood. And then I think even more paradoxically, I think history is a really long story of actually how the great moments of enrichment, rather it be the great enrichment of Dietrich McCloskey, rather it be Tocqueville, all of these actually key moments that have made history, to say something very large, are defined by different uses of language. But because that is qualitative, the history books have missed it. And so we actually think the practical thing to do is to use language in a way that is quantitative, when actually history shows us at the key moments of great enrichment, we had a qualitative change of language that is more on the side of poetry than it is on the side of computer. And I think a lot of our work now is recovering that history to build confidence that this is what we need to do and spread. I must run. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Love you.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, and we have to wrap up here. Why don't we do just a lightning round of just take away a word, a thought from today's conversation, and then I have to go get my child.
Well, I wrote a little poem that I wanted to read. It's not long.
Okay.
And it was, do you remember the story that Stephen told about paperclips last week or last time we met?
Yeah.
He said his choir director was into paperclips.
Yeah.
She was always running around, and he was wondering why they don't have iPads, and and then he realized, well, we wouldn't be having this experience with her if she didn't have paperclips. So I wrote this. It's called Paperclips. They stand at the ready. They hold. They sort. They are prepared. Shiny metal, a testament to civilization. Now they're old school. Flickering light has replaced them. Mesmerizing. Paperclips are no longer efficient and hardly effective. But you glide and dance between us, we who sing with the angels. A bee from flower to flower, a mother, your purpose, correcting and connecting, fluttering pages, your wings. Breathlessness is your duty. Frustration and joy wash in tiny lapping waves across your face. If it wasn't for paper clips, I would not have smelled your hair as you bent in front of me to sort and correct. I would not have felt the rush of air following you as you flew past on wings of love. Your sweet breath would have remained a stranger to me, and the softness of your touch.
Beautiful. Thanks, Sherry. Robin, Ian, final takeaway.
I have been thinking about a lot of what Daniel was saying for a while now. I had dinner with him and his wife and my wife, and it was great. And I think that might be some of where these seeds have come from. But I've been contemplating how to create a space that does that social coordination thing where it draws people that want to explore the unknownness of each other and the group. And in many ways, I find some of those things in the TLC, but I think that there is a need for it to be real and local. And so my takeaways are, I really think that I'm probably going to try to get into the pub business, and and I think that talking might be the most real thing that I know how to do or have some expertise with, like, because there's so many things. I'm trying to find like a good job to have for meaning and money and family and time and all of these things. And I'm like, if I just figure out how to do something digitally, then I won't have to drive to work, or like I can make my own schedule or whatever. But then I won't know how to do anything is what I keep thinking. So I was just, this is just a me thing, but I was happy to walk away from this conversation thinking, like, actually, I'm one of the grittiest, grungiest, dirtiest persons I know in the domain of words and speaking and conversating. And so, like, I can take that as that's my blue collar shirt, is the talking shirt.
No, that's great.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Well, I mean, being a bartender in a pub, Ian, that's just being in a story, in a huge story. And you want to learn what Daniel was talking about empathy, and which is poetic relation, which is being able to garden with Wittgenstein. Just be a bartender, but don't get cynical. Don't get cynical.
Yeah. Oh man, Robin.
Dirty and grungy are great fine points. Are great.
Oh yeah.
Strong points. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Sherry, when you grabbed that cup, I had such a hard time focusing on Daniel after that, because you grabbed that cup, and I felt this like idea of once you knew it was a cup from being a small child, right? Then when you wanted a cup, that's what you grab for.
Yeah.
You grab for the cup because you know what it is already. And when you grab it, you know you got it. So this popped out of me while you were doing that.
The other amazing thing about it, Robin, that just blew my mind, is that you can close your eyes and conform to it. Like when you reach for it, like it's bizarre.
It's automatic.
Like,
you got it. Yeah.
Like, because there's a verse that says conform to the image of Christ. And a lot of people think it's imitating. And I always hated that language. I'm like, I can't be like Jesus.
No,
like,
it's not. It's not acknowledgement. It's knowing it, Yeah,
that's just like kindergarten, not to be insulting or anything, but literally it is. That's what imitation is, right? That's what children do. No, it's conforming is to reach towards. It's actually an orientation.
That's a good word for it.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So
Anyway.
this is what I wrote when you did that. reach for the goddess and wrap myself around her. This
Mhm.
is the shape that I know from my youth, from being cradled, from lying in soft grass,
Yeah.
from holding a guitar in my arms,
Mm.
from wrapping my arms and legs around a lover,
Mhm.
from becoming a vessel for a child.
Mm. That's so beautiful.
That's
That's right.
when you grab that cup, that was just for me. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. When you grab the cup, it cracked open a little bit of my my like allergy to the word conform. I
Yeah.
hear the word conform and I'm like, I don't want to have anything to do with that. But I mean,
It's a
just
different
even
way of-
breaking, just slowing the word down and saying conform with form.
With form,
It's
with
like-
shape and knowledge. Yeah.
There's a process of becoming.
which is what like making love to somebody is.
Yeah.
Conforming to their image. It's
Yeah.
also what marriage is. Like,
Yeah.
somebody asked me once, what would you who would you be if you never married Uli? I'm like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Everything I am is because I married Uli.
Yeah.
Right?
And when you-
you
When you
conform
carry
to
a
me.
child, your child conforms to your body, but as it grows, your body conforms to it. So it's this
Because you
symbiotic
reach
confirmation,
for each other.
Yeah.
You orient to each other,
Yeah.
right? Forming with. That's right, Rigel. But
Yeah.
of course, there's always the missing the mark version of conform, right?
Right. Right.
Anyway.
Well, I just wanted to get this up on the screen from Make a Minsk. I usually have to fight the temptation of speeding up YouTube podcasts, but Daniel is the first person I wanted to slow down so I didn't miss anything as it flew by. Wonderful. And that's the beauty. You can
isn't
go
that the
back
truth?
and listen
Oh my
again
God.
and again.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful.
Sometimes I feel like when I'm listening to Daniel, I feel like I'm listening to someone who really knows music theory, and I have such a rudimentary grasp, and the words go by too fast, and I'm going, wait a minute, I know what that. No, wait, now he's on something else, So yeah, it's like, oh, I'm almost there sometimes.
I need to just clip those out so we can kind of marinate in them a little bit.
Totally.
All right. I really
You
have to
gotta
go. Love you guys.
Love you guys.
So wonderful.
Bye,
And I will
Robin.
see you
Bye, Rachel.
probably not next week. Next week I'm going to be on the road. And we'll see about the week after, but I'll see you
You've got
soon.
that's the estuary the week after.
That's the estuary weekend, so it's going to be kind of up in the air.
Oh, Rachel, I really do want to send you my estuary song. I keep forgetting to do it.
Oh, yes, please do. Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Wonderful.
I'll try to
guys.
record it on my phone and send it to you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
How do I leave?
It'll happen.